Lieutenant Olivia Harmon never expected to be taken. As a scientist who studied alien life forms for the United Earth Defense Force, she had seen many strange creatures, but she always watched them from the safety of research ships or military bases. Now, everything had changed. The attack came without warning. The reptile-like aliens called Vraxians struck Outpost Delta 7 with speed and purpose. They weren't there to kill. They wanted prisoners. Human specimens. Olivia was one of 5 they captured. Olivia sat in a small cell on the Vraxian ship, watching the stars blur outside the small window. Her hands were bound with metal cuffs that bit into her skin when she moved too much. The air smelled strange, too sweet and thick, making it hard to think clearly. She looked at her fellow prisoners. Captain Eric Miller sat with his back straight, his face showing no fear even though his left eye was swollen shut from fighting back during the raid. Dr. Susan Whitney, a scientist who worked with energy and space, kept mumbling numbers and equations to herself. Private Jack Daniels, a young soldier on his first space mission, couldn't stop shaking. And Leah Garcia from the communications team hadn't stopped crying since they were dragged onto the ship. "Stay calm," Eric said to them all, his voice low and steady. "Remember your training. They want us alive for some reason. That gives us time to plan." Olivia nodded, but she wasn't sure what plan could help them now. The Vraxians were known for their cruel tests on other species. No one taken by them had ever returned to tell what happened. The journey lasted 3 days. They were given water and strange blue food that tasted like wet paper. On the 3rd day, the ship slowed and the stars outside stopped blurring. "We've arrived," Olivia said, pressing her face to the window. Below them was a planet with 3 moons. It looked mostly green and blue like Earth, but the colors were wrong, too bright, almost fake-looking. Armed guards came for them soon after. The Vraxians stood 7 feet tall with scaled skin in shades of green and brown. Their yellow eyes had 2 pupils each, and when they opened their mouths, 3 rows of teeth gleamed in the ship's lights. They were taken to a large building that stretched across the landscape like a metal spider. Inside, the halls were white and clean. The air smelled of chemicals. Through clear walls, Olivia saw rooms filled with strange equipment and tanks holding creatures she had never seen before. "Look," she whispered to the others as they passed a large room. Inside were holding cells, dozens of them, containing creatures from across the galaxy. Some paced back and forth while others lay still. All looked dangerous. A tall Vraxian with red markings on his scales approached them. Unlike the others, he wore a white coat over his body armor. "I am Commander Kraz," he said, his words coming through a translator box on his belt. "Welcome to the research center. You are here to help us understand humans." "We won't help you with anything," Captain Miller said, standing tall despite his cuffs. Kraz made a sound like rocks grinding together. A laugh, Olivia realized. "Your help is not required, only your presence." He waved a clawed hand toward the room with the creatures. "You will join our collection in what we call the Proving Grounds." Dr. Whitney stepped forward. "We are scientists, military personnel. We have rights under the Space Treaty of—" "You have no rights here," Kraz cut her off. "You will be placed in our testing environment with other species. We will observe how you survive, or don't." Private Daniels lunged at Kraz but was quickly knocked down by a guard. "You can't do this," he shouted from the floor, blood running from his nose. "We already have," Kraz replied. He turned to his assistants. "Process them. Basic medical scans, then prepare them for entry." They were separated after that. Olivia was taken to a small room where Vraxian workers in masks scanned her body with humming devices. They took samples of her blood and hair. They measured her strength by making her push against machines. All the while, they talked about her as if she couldn't hear them. Human female, age 32. Earth years, physical condition above average for her species. Stress hormones elevated but within expected range. When they finished, they gave her a gray jumpsuit to wear. To her surprise, they returned her utility knife, a small tool that all Earth Defense Force members carried. "Why are you letting me keep this?" she asked the worker who handed it to her. The Vraxian blinked slowly. "Commander Kraz believes tools show how species adapt. The knife is listed in your file as standard equipment. It is permitted. Olivia tucked the knife into her boot, careful not to show how valuable this small advantage might be. They led her down a long corridor toward a round metal door. Through a window she could see what looked like a forest inside. Trees with purple leaves, strange plants, a small stream. It looked peaceful, but Olivia knew better. This was the proving grounds Kraz had mentioned, a place where they would watch her fight to survive. As they reached the door, she saw her fellow humans being led toward different entrances around the massive dome. They were being separated intentionally. "Remember your training," Captain Miller shouted from across the room before a guard struck him. "Stay alive." Olivia caught his eye and nodded once. She would stay alive. She had skills the Vraxians didn't know about, skills that went beyond her official role as a scientist. There were reasons the Earth Defense Force had selected her for certain special projects, reasons that had more to do with her past than her scientific knowledge. The airlock door slid open with a hiss. A guard shoved her forward. "Human survival rate in the proving grounds is less than 20%, he told her, his mouth parts clicking together in what might have been enjoyment. "The creatures inside have been chosen for their hunting abilities." Olivia stepped through the door without being pushed again. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. "Humans are such fragile creatures," Commander Kraz said, appearing suddenly beside the door. "Yet you've claimed territory where stronger species have failed. We seek to understand why." "You might not like the answer," Olivia replied quietly. The door sealed behind her with a thud. She was now inside the artificial environment, alone except for whatever monsters the Vraxians had placed there with her. The air felt warm and damp, and strange bird-like calls echoed from the trees ahead. Olivia took a deep breath and felt for the knife in her boot. First, she needed water, then shelter. Then she would learn the patterns of this place. What lived here, how it hunted, where it slept. What the Vraxians didn't understand was that humans weren't just survivors. Some humans were hunters by nature. Some, like Olivia, had been born with instincts that modern society tried to control and suppress. Here, in this place of death, those instincts might finally be useful. She moved into the forest silently, already watching, already planning. The Vraxians thought they were running the experiment. They were wrong. Olivia spent her first 3 days in the proving grounds learning the land. The huge dome had different areas inside it. There were thick forests with tall trees, rocky hills that rose high above the ground, and wet swamps that bubbled with strange gases. The fake sun rose and set faster than on Earth, giving her about 18 hours for each day and night cycle. She found a small cave at the bottom of a cliff to use as shelter. The opening was narrow, which meant larger creatures would have trouble getting inside. She gathered soft leaves to make a bed and collected rocks to use as tools and weapons. Olivia used vines to make simple traps around her cave. They wouldn't kill anything big, but they would make noise if something came close. She also found plants she could eat by watching small animals to see what they ate. Her training as a scientist who studied alien life helped her know which foods might be safe. She made a spear from a long, straight branch. She used her knife to sharpen one end to a point, then hardened the tip by holding it in a small fire. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. On the 4th day, Olivia met her first real danger. She was kneeling by a stream, filling a large leaf she had folded into a cup, when she heard a clicking sound behind her. She turned slowly and saw it, a taurian mantis, just like the ones she had studied in her work with the Earth Defense Force. The creature stood nearly 8 feet, tall on 4 back legs. Its front arms ended in sharp edges that could cut through metal. Its head had large eyes on the sides and cutting jaws that moved sideways instead of up and down. The mantis was one of the most feared hunters in this part of space. Olivia didn't run. Running would trigger the mantis to chase her. Instead, she backed away slowly, keeping her eyes on the creature. The mantis moved forward, its front arms raised to strike. When it lunged at her, Olivia dove to the side and rolled toward a crack in the rocks nearby, a space too small for the mantis to follow. She squeezed into the narrow opening just as the creature's cutting arm slashed down, missing her foot by inches. The mantis tried to reach into the crack, but its arms were too big. After several tries, it made an angry sound and moved away. Olivia waited 2 hours before coming out, making sure the mantis was gone. She returned to her cave with less water than she wanted, but with valuable information. She now knew what kind of dangers lived in this place. That night she heard screaming from far away. It was a human voice, a man's voice. She recognized it as Private Jack Daniels. His screams went on for several minutes before stopping suddenly. Olivia felt cold inside. Jack was dead, and she knew she could be next if she wasn't careful. She felt bad that he had died, but part of her also felt relief that it wasn't her. This thought made her uncomfortable, but she pushed the feeling aside. In this place, only survival mattered. By the end of the first week, Olivia had seen more of the creatures the Vraxians had put in the dome with her. There was a pack of animals, like wolves with fur that glowed in the dark. She saw them hunting smaller animals at night. There was also a strange blob that moved across the ground, absorbing plants and small creatures that it touched. Most dangerous was a reptile that could change its skin to look like rocks or plants, making it almost impossible to see until it moved. When the wolf-like creatures cornered her near a fallen tree, Olivia surprised herself with how quickly she acted. She didn't freeze or panic. Instead, she fought with a cold focus that felt natural and right. She killed 2 of the animals with her spear before the others ran away. As she cleaned her spear afterward, she noticed something strange, a tiny light blinking in a nearby tree. Looking closer, she realized it was a camera. The Vraxians were watching her. She looked around more carefully and found other cameras hidden in rocks and trees. Olivia began to use this knowledge. She made fake camps to trick the watchers about where she really slept. She noticed that lights on the cameras would change when creatures came near them, so she learned where the dangerous animals spent their time and how they moved through the dome. On the 10th day, Olivia found something interesting, a place where Vraxian workers entered the dome to fix things and check the cameras. It was a small door built into the wall near the rocky area. She watched from hiding as they came and went, noting that they changed shifts at the same time each day. She was making her way back to her cave when she spotted another human, Dr. Susan Whitney. The scientist was hiding in a tree, looking thin and scared. Olivia called to her softly, "Susan, it's me, Olivia. I'm not going to hurt you." Susan climbed down slowly, watching Olivia with caution. "How are you still alive?" "The things in here. They're everywhere." "I know how to avoid them," Olivia said. "Have you seen any of the others?" Susan shook her head. "I heard Jack die days ago. I think Captain Miller is still alive. I saw him from far away yesterday, but I was too scared to call out." They shared what food they had. Susan had survived by staying in trees most of the time and eating fruits from the higher branches. She hadn't found clean water in 2 days and was very thirsty. Olivia showed her how to use leaves to collect water. "We should stay together," Susan said. "We'll have a better chance." Olivia wasn't sure about this. She was used to being alone, and Susan might slow her down, but having another person to keep watch while she slept would be helpful. "Okay," she agreed. "But you need to listen to what I say. I know these creatures. I've studied them." Susan looked at her strangely. "You seem different than before. On the base, you were quiet, always reading. Now I'm what?" Olivia asked. "I don't know. More alive somehow, like you belong here." Olivia didn't answer. She couldn't explain to Susan that part of her did feel at home in this dangerous place. The constant threat made her mind sharper. The need to hunt and avoid being hunted felt like something she had been born to do. That night, as Susan slept, in the cave, Olivia stood at the entrance and looked up at the fake stars on the dome ceiling. She thought about Commander Kraz and his experiment. He wanted to know why humans had survived and spread through space when other, stronger species had failed. Olivia smiled in the darkness. If she survived long enough, perhaps she would show him the answer. And the Vraxians might not like what they discovered. 2 weeks had passed in the proving grounds. Olivia and Susan worked together to survive. They moved their camp each day, never staying in one place too long. Olivia taught Susan how to move quietly, how to set traps, and how to use a simple spear. "How do you know so much about hunting?" Susan asked one night as they ate small fruits they had gathered. "I told you I'm a scientist who studies alien life," Olivia said. "But this is different. You don't just know about these creatures. You know how they think, how they hunt." Susan looked at Olivia with curious eyes. "It's like you're one of them." Olivia didn't answer right away. She wasn't ready to tell Susan about her past, about the special program in the Earth Defense Force that had recruited her because of her unique skills, not in spite of them. "We should get some sleep," Olivia said, changing the subject. "I'll take first watch." The next morning they woke to a strange sound, a low hum that seemed to come from the walls of the dome. The ground began to shake. "What's happening?" Susan asked, grabbing onto a tree to stay standing. Olivia looked around. "They're changing the dome. The Vraxians are doing something to the environment." They watched as parts of the land began to move. In the distance, the swamp area started to sink under the ground. The far edge of the forest slowly disappeared, behind rising walls. "They're making the space smaller," Olivia realized. "They're pushing us toward the middle." Susan looked scared. "Why would they do that?" "They want us to meet the other creatures. They want to fight." Olivia picked up her spear. "We need to get to higher ground to see what's happening." They climbed a tall hill and looked out over the dome. The habitable area was now half the size it had been. In the center was a large open space, a flat circle surrounded by trees and rocks. As they watched, they saw movement in the trees on the far side of the open space. A large shape moved through the forest. Captain Eric Miller. He was alive, but he was limping badly and his clothes were torn and dirty. Then they saw something else. A huge flying creature circling above the open area. It had wings that stretched 20 feet across and a long, narrow head with a beak full of sharp teeth. "That's a Proxima raptor," Olivia said quietly. "They hunt using heat vision. They can see the warmth of a body from miles away." Susan stared at her. "How do you know that?" "I studied them at the research base. They're rare. The Vraxians must have gone to a lot of trouble to capture one." The flying creature dived toward Captain Miller. He saw it coming and ran for cover, but he was too slow with his injured leg. The raptor grabbed him with its clawed feet and lifted him into the air. Olivia watched without emotion as the captain fought and struggled. There was nothing they could do from this distance. The raptor carried Miller to a rocky outcrop and began to tear at him with its beak. Susan turned away, but Olivia kept watching. She needed to know how the raptor attacked, where its weaknesses might be. Every piece of information could help them survive. As they made their way down from the hill, they heard someone moving in the bushes nearby. Olivia raised her spear ready to fight. "Don't shoot," a female voice called out. "It's me, Leah." Leah Garcia stumbled out of the bushes. She looked terrible, thin and dirty, with a deep cut on her arm that had become infected. The wound was swollen and red. "We thought you were dead," Susan said, helping Leah sit down. "Almost was," Leah said weakly. "Got bit by one of those snake things on the first day. Been hiding ever since, too sick to move much." Olivia examined Leah's wound. "This is bad. The infection is spreading." "I know," Leah said. "But I heard the ground moving and knew I had to try to find someone." "Did you see any of the others?" Susan asked. "Miller was alive yesterday. I saw him from far away." Leah looked down. "Jack is dead. I saw it happen. One of those blob things got him." Olivia cleaned Leah's wound as best she could and wrapped it with large leaves. "You need medicine," she said, "and we don't have any." "The Vraxians have medicine," Susan said. "If we could get to that door you found, maybe we could get inside the facility." Olivia thought about this. It was risky, but staying in the dome was becoming more dangerous as the space got smaller. "We'll try tomorrow," she decided. "The maintenance workers come at the same time each day. We might be able to slip in when they open the door." That night, they made camp in a small cluster of rocks. Leah's fever got worse and she drifted in and out of sleep. Susan looked worried. She won't last much longer without help, she whispered to Olivia. I know. But getting to that door won't be easy now. The Vraxians are watching us more closely. How do you know? Olivia pointed to a small light blinking in a nearby tree. More cameras. They've added them since I started killing their creatures. Susan looked surprised. Is that why the wolf things haven't come back? And why we haven't seen that reptile that can change colors? Olivia nodded. They're afraid. The animals are afraid of you? No, the Vraxians are. Susan was quiet for a moment. Who are you really, Olivia? No normal scientist knows how to do the things you do. Olivia sighed. It was time for some truth. Before I joined the Earth Defense Force, I was in a special facility back on Earth, a place where they put people who were different. Different how? People who thought differently, who saw the world as a place of predators and prey. Olivia looked into the darkness. I was very good at being a predator, too good. Society doesn't like people like me. Susan moved back slightly. You hurt people? I hurt people who tried to hurt me. And yes, sometimes others. Olivia looked at Susan. The Defense Force found me there. They thought my way of thinking could be useful for understanding alien predators. They trained me, gave me a purpose. You're a weapon, Susan said quietly. I'm a specialist, Olivia corrected. And right now, my skills are the only reason we're still alive. Before Susan could respond, they heard a sound from above. The flying raptor was circling again, coming closer. It can see our body heat, Olivia said. We need to move. As they grabbed their few belongings and helped Leah to her feet, Olivia looked up at the circling creature. In the observation room, she knew Commander Kraz was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Olivia smiled slightly and whispered, You wanted to see what humans are capable of. Get ready for a show. Olivia, Susan, and Leah moved quickly through the forest as the flying raptor circled overhead. The creature's shadow passed over them again and again as it searched for prey. Olivia led them to a dense area of trees where the branches grew close, together making it harder for the raptor to see them from above. Stay here, Olivia told Susan. Take care of Leah. I'm going to deal with that thing. Susan grabbed Olivia's arm. Are you crazy? That raptor just killed Miller. It will kill you, too. Olivia looked at Susan with cold, clear eyes. No, it won't. She moved away before Susan could argue further. Olivia needed to hunt, and she didn't want Susan to see what she was about to do. Some things were better left unseen. Olivia found a clearing where the raptor would have room to land. She collected sap from certain trees and coated her spear with the sticky substance. Then she covered herself in mud from a small stream, hiding her body heat from the raptor's special vision. She stood in the middle of the clearing and waited. The raptor made another circle above the trees. Olivia knew it could still see her shape even if it couldn't detect her heat signature clearly. That was what she wanted. The huge creature dived toward her. Olivia didn't run. She waited until the last moment, then dropped to the ground as the raptor's claws reached for her. The bird-like predator flew past, confused by the sudden disappearance of its prey. When it circled back for another try, Olivia was ready. As the raptor came in low, she rolled to the side and thrust her spear upward into the soft area under its wing. The sticky sap on her spear helped the weapon stick in the creature's flesh. The raptor screamed, a high sound that hurt Olivia's ears. It flew up, trying to escape, but the spear had damaged the thin skin of its wing. The creature crashed into the trees nearby, unable to stay in the air. Olivia approached carefully. The wounded raptor was still dangerous. It snapped its toothed beak at her and tried to claw her with its feet. Olivia waited patiently for her chance. When the raptor lunged at her, she dodged to the side and grabbed a sharp rock she had placed there earlier. With quick, precise movements, she struck the back of the raptor's long neck, hitting a spot where the spine connected to the skull. The raptor collapsed, its body twitching. Olivia finished it with her knife, cutting through the same spot on its neck to make sure it was dead. She looked up at a camera hidden in a nearby tree and gave a small smile. She wondered what Commander Kraz was thinking now. In the observation room of the Vraxian facility, Commander Kraz watched the screens with growing concern. The human female had just killed a Proxima Raptor, one of the most effective hunters in the known galaxy, and she had done it with primitive weapons and careful planning. "Show me her file again," he ordered an assistant. The screen displayed Olivia's military record. Most of it was standard information, but there was a section marked as classified. Kraz entered his command codes to access it. The file revealed disturbing information. Lieutenant Olivia Harmon had been recruited from a secure facility on Earth, a place where humans with dangerous mental conditions were kept. Before joining the military, she had been locked away for showing extreme predatory behavior. The Earth Defense Force had seen her unique psychological profile as valuable for certain high-risk research. "Sir," his assistant said, interrupting his reading. "Subject Harmon is returning to the other humans." Kraz watched as Olivia rejoined Susan and Leah. She carried meat from the raptor, freshly cut from its body. "She's providing for her group," Kraz noted, "like an alpha predator." "Sir, should we extract her?" "She's killed 3 of our test subjects now. She's disrupting the experiment." Kraz thought for a moment. "No, I want to see what she does next. This human is showing us something important about her species." When Olivia returned to Susan and Leah, she brought the raptor meat and some plants with healing properties. She used the plants to make a paste for Leah's infected wound. "You killed it, didn't you?" Susan asked as she watched Olivia treat Leah's arm. Olivia nodded. "We need the meat, and now we don't have to worry about it hunting us." Susan looked at her with a mixture of fear and respect. "The way you talk about it, like it's just a normal thing to kill a giant flying monster." "It is normal," Olivia said simply. "There are predators and there is prey. I choose not to be prey." That night, as they cooked the raptor meat over a small fire, Leah's fever began to break. The medicine from the plants was working. "Thank you," Leah said weakly to Olivia. "You saved my life." Olivia nodded but said nothing. She was thinking about their next move. The Vraxians were watching them closely now. After what she had done to the raptor, they would be more careful, more interested. "Tomorrow we try for the maintenance door," she told the others. "It's our best chance to get out of here." "And then what?" Susan asked. "Even if we get inside the facility, we're still on a distant planet far from any human outposts." "One problem at a time," Olivia replied. "First, we get out of this dome." The next morning, they gathered their few belongings and headed toward Dome, the northern section where Olivia had seen the maintenance workers enter. As they walked, they noticed something strange. The other creatures in the dome were staying away from them. "Look," Susan whispered, pointing to a pack of the wolf-like animals. The creatures had changed direction when they caught Olivia's scent. "They're afraid of you," Leah said in wonder. Olivia nodded. "They smell the raptor blood on me. They know I killed it." "It's more than that," Susan said. "It's like they sense something about you, something that scares them." Before Olivia could respond, the ground began to shake again. The dome was changing once more. Walls rose from the ground, creating a maze-like pattern that forced them to change direction. "They're hurting us," Olivia realized. "They're directing us toward something." They followed the new path because they had no choice. It led them to the central open area, a circular clearing about 100 feet across. On the far side stood the creature that had killed Jack Daniels, the gelatinous blob that absorbed everything it touched. And beside it was something worse. A 6-limbed hunter with skin that changed colors as it moved. Olivia recognized it immediately. "Nexus Stalker," she said quietly. "One of the most dangerous predators in this sector." "What do we do?" Leah asked, her voice shaking. Olivia gripped her knife. "I fight." "No," Susan said firmly. "We fight. Together." Olivia looked at Susan with surprise, then nodded. She quickly told them her plan. They would use the blob creature against the Nexus Stalker. The 3 women separated, each moving to a different position around the clearing. Olivia knew the Vraxians were watching every move. This was their final test. Human survivors against the dome's most deadly predators. Olivia stepped into the open, drawing the attention of both creatures. "Come on," she said quietly. "Show me what you've got." The blob creature moved first, sliding across the ground toward Olivia. It left a trail of burned grass behind it as its acids broke down everything it touched. The Nexus stalker watched from the edge of the clearing, its 6 limbs tense and ready to spring. Olivia backed away slowly, leading the blob toward where Susan waited. Susan had gathered sticky sap from the trees and spread it on the ground in a wide pattern. When the blob reached the sap, it slowed down as the thick substance resisted its movement. "Now, Leah!" Olivia shouted. From her position on the other side of the clearing, Leah threw rocks at the Nexus stalker. The rocks didn't hurt the creature, but they got its attention. The 6-limbed hunter turned toward the noise, its skin changing from green to a mottled brown as it prepared to attack. Olivia ran between the stalker and the blob, making sure both creatures saw her. The stalker charged, just as she had expected. Olivia waited until the last second, then dove to the side. The stalker couldn't stop its charge and ran straight into the edge of the blob. The blob immediately began to attach itself to the stalker's legs. The stalker screamed, a high clicking sound, and tried to pull away, but the blob had already started to digest its limbs. The 2 deadly predators were now locked in their own battle for survival. "Come on," Olivia yelled to Susan and Leah. "This is our chance." They ran along the edge of the clearing toward the north side of the dome where the maintenance door was located. Behind them, the stalker had pulled free of the blob, but had lost 2 of its limbs. Mad with pain, it attacked the blob with greater fury, tearing chunks from it with its clawed hands. The women reached the wall of the dome just as an alarm began to sound throughout the facility. Red lights flashed along the ceiling of the dome. "They know what we're doing," Susan said, breathing hard from their run. "Good," Olivia replied. "That means they're scared." They found the maintenance door, a simple metal panel built into the dome wall. According to Olivia's observations, it should open soon for the daily inspection. "What if they cancel the inspection because of what's happening?" Leah asked. Olivia shook her head. "They won't. Their experiments are too valuable to risk. Someone will come to check the systems." They hid in the bushes near the door and waited. After 10 minutes, they heard a mechanical sound as the door began to slide open. 2 Vraxian workers stepped through, carrying tools and scanning devices. Olivia moved before the others could react. She darted forward and drove her knife into the neck of the first worker. The Vraxian fell without making a sound. The second worker turned to run, but Susan was there, swinging a heavy branch that struck the alien in the head. "Grab his access card," Olivia told Susan as she took the card from the dead worker. "And his weapons." The Vraxians carried small stunners, not deadly weapons, but enough to disable an escaped test subject. Olivia took one and gave the other to Leah. "Stay close to me," she told the others as they slipped through the door into a narrow corridor. Inside the facility, the alarm was louder. Vraxian staff ran through the hallways, some carrying weapons, others looking confused and frightened. "They're not soldiers," Olivia noted. "They're scientists and workers. They don't know how to deal with this situation." They moved quickly through the corridor, using the access cards to open doors. Olivia seemed to know where she was going, following signs written in the Vraxian language. "You can read their writing?" Susan asked in surprise. "Just the basic symbols. That one means exit. That one means danger. And that one," Olivia pointed to a sign ahead, "means docking bay." They followed the signs to a large room filled with small transport ships. Vraxian workers were loading equipment onto the ships, apparently preparing to evacuate. "They're running away," Leah said. Olivia nodded. "They've lost control of their own facility, and now they're afraid of what might get out." They hid behind a stack of containers, watching the activity in the bay. Olivia studied the ships, looking for one they might be able to operate. "There," she said, pointing to a small transport near the back of the bay. "That's a standard model. The controls should be simple enough." "You know how to fly a Vraxian ship?" Susan asked. "No, but I've studied their technology. I can figure it out." Before they could move toward the ship, a group of armed Vraxians entered the bay. At their center was Commander Kraz, giving orders and pointing toward different ships. "We need to wait until they leave," Leah whispered. "No," Olivia said. "We need to take out Kraz. He's the one who can stop the evacuation and trap us here." Without waiting for agreement, Olivia moved out from behind the containers. She approached the group of Vraxians from behind, staying in their blind spots. When she was close enough, she fired the stunner at one of the guards. The guard fell and the others turned in confusion. Olivia was already moving, firing again and taking down a second guard. The remaining Vraxians raised their weapons, but they hesitated, unsure where to shoot in the crowded bay. Commander Kraz saw Olivia and hissed in surprise. "Subject Harmon, how did you—" He didn't finish his sentence. Susan and Leah had emerged from hiding and fired their stunners at the remaining guards. In the chaos, Olivia reached Kraz and pressed her knife against his throat. "Order them to drop their weapons," she told him. Kraz made a series of clicking sounds, and the few guards still standing put down their weapons. "Now tell everyone to leave this bay," Olivia continued. Kraz hesitated, then spoke into a small device on his wrist. The Vraxian workers immediately began filing out of the docking bay, leaving only Olivia, Susan, Leah, and Kraz. "You've destroyed years of research," Kraz said, his translator making his voice sound flat and emotionless. "You destroyed lives," Olivia replied. "The difference is I don't pretend my killing is for science." She forced Kraz toward the small transport ship. "You're going to help us leave this planet." Inside the ship, Kraz reluctantly showed them how to operate the controls. Susan, who had some pilot training, took the main position. "I made a mistake with you humans," Kraz said as Susan started the ship's engines. "I thought you were interesting test subjects. I did not realize what you truly are." "And what are we?" Olivia asked. "Predators," Kraz replied. "Like us. But you hide it better. You pretend to be civilized, but underneath you are killers. Especially you, Olivia Harmon." Olivia smiled slightly. "You're wrong, Commander. Humans aren't just predators. Some of us are, but what makes us dangerous is that we can be both. Predator and prey, killer and healer, monster and hero. You never understood that." As the ship lifted off from the bay, Olivia looked at Susan and Leah. They had survived because they adapted. Susan, with her scientific knowledge, Leah with her determination to live despite her injuries. But most of all, they had survived because they had embraced the truth about themselves and what they were capable of when pushed to their limits. The ship broke through the atmosphere, leaving the research facility behind. Olivia allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Vraxians had trapped her with monsters, thinking she would be easy prey. Instead, they had learned a valuable lesson about humans. Sometimes the most dangerous monster of all is the one that looks harmless until it's too late.